Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our reaction and review for Black Mirror Season 6, Episode 4, Mazey Day, everyone's favorite episode of Black Mirror Season. So, wait. Oh, actually, no, sorry. I was temporarily replaced by somebody else in a spaceship who was making me say that. This is actually everybody's least favorite episode of Black
What are you
Mirror Season
talking
6.
about? I absolutely love this episode. I'm kidding. It was terrible.
Okay,
No,
well,
it was not good.
all right. It's time for an all-time zag, everybody. I didn't hate this episode. I may be the only person who didn't hate Mazey Day. I'm not saying it was great. It wasn't. It has a lot of problems, but I think at the end of the day, what I'm looking for when I'm watching Black Mirror sometimes is I don't necessarily have to think all that much. I just want to be entertained. I just want to see something that's a little bit weird and unexpected. And there's about a good 5 to 10 minute stretch of this episode where I was like, man, this is pretty cool. Well, also, I love monster movies. I love monstrous transformations. Like, I love werewolves that don't have to do with like weird love triangles and like that sort of stuff. That I liked a lot of the twist of this episode, and it's just the ending of it just makes me so freaking mad. Like I can't process my rage at the end of this.
No, the storytelling in this was not cohesive. It did not make any sense. It got us to an ending that did not make any sense to what this Bo character was doing. I mean, Charlie Brooker made this joke that he was just like, oh yeah, we tried to write a Black Mirror episode with Chat GPT and, it was really bad, so we didn't use it. I'm like, did you really not use it, or is it Mazey Day? Like, this just didn't make a lot of sense for the story that we were following with Bo, this, photographer that's trying to get these celebrity shots, like everything that was set up with her to get to that ending. I was like, what?
the ending is a hot mess. Listen, everybody, this is the How I Met Your Mother of Black Mirror episodes.
Oh,
If you
wow.
just ignore the ending and just enjoy the rest of the episode as it was, like there's something there. I will die on this hill probably alone that if they had just sort of sat on this for another couple of years, maybe they would have thought of a better way to end this. But anyway, we're going to get into everything with Mazey Day, but hit that subscribe button. We have reviews, reactions, hot takes on every other episode for Black Mirror this season.
Yep.
Also, just so much dystopian drama right now. The Walking Dead Dead City just premiered this week.
It was great.
Yeah.
That first episode was really good. We have a review of that here at the channel. We're reviewing from, if you're not watching that, it's from the executive producers of Lost. It's really, really good. Silo, if you're looking for something else that's sort of like a dystopian, everybody's sort of trapped in a big giant underground silo. Mysteries is so good.
Okay, so I'm going to make a really bizarre comparison here at the start of this because this episode reminds me a lot of The Idol, which is on HBO, which is really bad. Like, I would rather watch Mazey Day 100 times over than another episode of The Idol, which I think I'm probably just going to end up watching the whole way through, even though I don't like it. But
I am happily not watching The Idol.
Like, the biggest problem with both of these, with both this episode and The Idol, is just like, they are making you watch something that just like at its core feels very dated. And yeah, I understand that Mazey Day is sort of set at a time when celebrity photography was a really big thing, but it's just for this particular weird cottage industry, for whatever reason, it's hard for me to get into that mindset. It's hard for me to sort of look at this and apply it to like my 2023 mind, where I'm just sort of sitting here being like, do I really need to relive a story about like this sort of universe? Because it feels so played out to me. And there's already been so many headlines about all of this. I understand the idea of it being kind of like pseudo essential to everything, but I'm just going to throw another crazy idea out there. What if she wasn't like a celebrity photographer professionally, but she's just like somebody with a smartphone who figures out like this big name celebrity is there, and she just like, people are so celebrity obsessed. Like, I think you could have still made this episode work in that way and not even had to date it at all.
I would have liked to have seen this episode not be back in like 2006 when it was like, oh, Tom and Katie, had their baby. And I was like, okay, so this is way back in the past when, celebrity photography was so hot, and it was like, get those photographs, get them for the magazines, and now we're in a time where it's like magazines. Like, everybody has their phones and are everywhere taking pictures of celebrities everywhere. Like it is not the same. And it would have been more interesting to me to see photographers that are still trying to hold on to this kind of dinosaur industry now trying to get those types of photos.
If they had, yeah, I think if they had done something that was kind of a little bit more self-aware of that angle, that probably would have been more interesting, because just as it is, it felt very archaic in a way that some, quote unquote period pieces don't. Like, I didn't feel like watching Beyond the Sea being like, okay, do I really need to see another story sort of set in this era? Now, what I did like about Mazey Day, and yeah, I'm putting this right now, so come on, haters, let's deal with this, is that I really like the setting. Like, I like this, like, interesting, sleepy community that's got, like, all the woods around it. It felt very, like, quintessential sort of slasher flick, with, like, the diner, with all these sort of mysteries, with the rehab center that is just, like, completely empty. What's going on here? The setup, I think, was really cool and really interesting, and just it had very much like an old school horror movie vibe to it, and I appreciated that.
It absolutely did, and that worked with the werewolves.
Yes.
Now, I know there's some people out there that are like, oh, werewolves. No, I like that part.
Yes.
That part was really interesting to me. It was a twist I didn't see coming because they truly gave no hints at it. We saw that, Mazey was like really struggling with, addiction, everything that was kind of going on with her, that she had taken something, got in the car, was driving to go get like another pack of smokes or something like that, ran over what she thought was a person, ended up being a werewolf that bit her. And then she's going through sort of this transformation of, how do I deal with this? Can I deal with this? She's got this Hollywood doctor to the stars whose, specialty is werewolves. I was just like, okay, sure. You know what? I'd buy this.
Yeah.
It's Black Mirror. We have an episode coming up called Demon 79. I'm not going to buy werewolves, but I'll buy into the demons. No, yeah, it's all fine. The thing that I just truly had the hardest thing, like, connecting with or believing, was the character of Bo, this character who's like, she's a paparazzi. At the beginning, we see her, she's taking this photo of this actor who's, cheating on his girlfriend with this other man. And this photo just ruined his life, that he no longer exists anymore, that he unalived himself. Yeah. And then she really took that in to be like, oh my goodness, my photo, for whatever I made for it, $500, ended up completely ending this person. So I don't want to be part of that anymore. I'm like, oh, that's a really interesting story. They set it up where I was like, oh, very interesting.
Yeah.
What's going to make her come back, sort of thing. And it's this Mazey Day story where it's like, oh, she was on set and then all of a sudden she just disappeared for weeks and nobody's been able to get this photo of her. And they built up a little bit that Bo was a little bit late on her rent or whatever, but she wasn't in such a desperate situation that I expected her to go back to it after what happened. It was like such a tragedy that really held on to her humanity, to be like, wow, I really feel connected to what I did, my part in this, even though people are like, oh, it's not your fault, that she felt responsible in a part to this person dying. So it was like, I needed her to be very desperate for this money to get back into it. And I just didn't feel it.
This is why this episode needed to go back into the incubation chamber for a little while so you could think some of this through a little bit more. Because fundamentally, the idea of like this celebrity superstar also being a werewolf and having to contend with all of that, like, that was cool. Like,
it was cool.
The 5 or 10 minutes where she's just like full on werewolf, like tearing people up, I'm just like, yes, monsters. I was really into that. But yeah, the rest of this story, where you have an inconsistent leading character who is hard to really follow for that very reason. These other characters that are just these other photographers that are just like so one-dimensional and corny. And I know that there are some people that are really like this, but they felt very much like eye rolling out of my head. And of course, at a certain point, I was just rooting for Mazey Day to just like eat all of these other photographers alive. But the rest of the story around the werewolf just wasn't that interesting and wasn't that consistent. I just found myself rooting for the werewolf much of the time.
Yeah, and it became more and more and more inconsistent where it's like, okay, we saw Bo get back into it because one picture of Mazey Day was going to be worth like $30,000 or $40,000, and she's like, okay, that'll, take care of my rent, take care of my problems. You know what? Just for one picture, hopefully nothing bad is happening to her kind of thing. We'll just get that picture and get that payday, and it'll be okay. That it's not as scandalous as what she did before that, where it all sort of ended for that guy that she took that picture of. But as we sort of see her going through this, where they finally get to the treatment center and they peer through, the vent or whatever, and they see that Mazey's like chained to a bed. She's got a chain around her throat. There's goats in there for some reason. They do not know what is going on.
Yeah.
Bo really is in there being like, we need to help this person. Like, I'm no longer the photographer. I no longer care at all about this shot. I care about this person. Like, something really, truly terrible is happening to this person. And I was like, okay, so we're back to where Bo was when she took this picture of this guy. I'm like, okay, so we're kind of going like this with her. Okay, fine. She breaks in, helps her, unchains her. All the other photographers are just continuously taking pictures because, like you said, they're kind of one-dimensional. Yeah. Like, yeah, you can get a couple pictures and then you can help this person, but no. So then, we saw Mazey transform, start killing everybody. They all make it to the diner. And then we get to this last scene where I was just like, no, this is really terrible. Like, where we see Mazey and she's on the ground and she's just like, I can't go on anymore. Please just, take care of me. Like, please, like begging for her, life to be taken, to where we've got Bo deciding to give her a gun and photograph it. And I was just like, this doesn't make any sense. We started this whole thing with her feeling so bad about a photo that ended up ending somebody's life, that she left the industry, that now we're at this point that she's willing to take a picture of Mazey taking care of herself. What? Who wrote this? Who wrote this? Charlie Brooker, I am looking at you and calling BS. You absolutely used ChatGPT to make this episode. This made no sense.
I kind of feel like ChatGPT would have been like, negatory, this is bad. I am not putting this in the script. It was okay.
That ending was really bad.
Yeah.
It did feel like it kind of needed to be like, if you want to have something where like nobody gets what they want, then like, yeah, maybe Mazey is stuck being a werewolf even though she doesn't want to be and she wants to sort of end it all, but Bo doesn't make it either.
I would have been fine with that. I would have been fine with Mazey Day just tearing everybody up, sort of being a commentary on the fact that you people all invaded her privacy. You all came into her world. There are consequences to your actions. These are the consequences of that. Like, that would have been a satisfying enough ending because, yes, we did see Bo start to turn things around when she was in there. She was trying to help Mazey at first while everybody else is taking the photos, but she still got in there in the first place. So, like, there is still that action that is sort of hard to justify, but you guys started to do this emotional growth for this character. You then just walk all this back at the very last second for no real apparent reason other than just a paycheck.
No reason.
Yeah.
No reason. Like, she could have had a picture of Mazey Day chained to this bed with goats in the corner. That's a photo. And like, absolutely, so is her as a werewolf. Also a photo. She didn't take either of those photos. Instead, the photo is her back in her human form, ready to unalive herself. And then you're going to pull out the camera. I'm like, what is the motivation for that picture? Like, why would you take that picture? Especially since you left the industry because you took something that was adjacent to the same thing. Like, it just, oh my goodness, this episode just frustrated me to no end.
And I think a lot of it is because there was a really cool idea that was wasted. And that's sort of where
Yes.
I stand a lot with it, is that I think the idea in this episode, oh boy, all right, I'm saying it. The idea in this episode is more interesting than the idea of Loch Henry. If it's just like, if I'm going to just sit here and say in my head,
I'm putting on my hard hat for those
what
comments.
thing
Oh my
makes me
goodness.
more curious, as a story that's basically based on everybody's obsession with crime that we've seen like 200 times, or Celebrity Werewolf. Like, I'm taking Celebrity Werewolf 99% of the time. Like, the story that was interesting here, and this is where Black Mirror really botched it, it's about how does Mazey Day continue her life? Like, is she able to find a way to control being a werewolf? Or is she, turning into a werewolf on the off hours on set, like, killing her co-stars? Like, what's going on? Like, that to me is really cool and very much like in the tradition of horror with a fun twist on it. This was not supposed to be a story to me about the photographers. Like, that's just not the interesting core of this, and you wasted it. You did a bad ending. You ruined your whole idea, and I'm still so mad about it, because now I have to look like I'm defending this just like hunk of abject garbage from everybody. Like, I don't want to have to be the defender of this, but you had a good idea, so I'm left with no choice.
No, they did have a good idea. And they even had a good idea with Bo and following her story and this transformation into like, I felt really bad about where I was. There was real life consequences to what my job is. Okay, I've been brought back into this job, but there are still real life consequences that she's watching unfold when she sees Mazey chained to the bed, where she's like, this is not okay. Like, absolutely not okay. I'm here to save this person, and then end it with this turn for no reason. Like, why? It's not even like, at this point, like I said, money motivated. You missed a shot of her as a werewolf. How is that not worth more money than what you're getting a shot of? Honestly, werewolf.
Here is my final metaphor for Mazey Day is simply this. I'm running the race. I'm running the race. I'm doing really well. I can see the finish line. I'm almost at the finish line. Blah! Trip, fall, hop my head, pass out like 2 minutes before the finish line. This is Charlie Brooker has passed out this episode right before the finish line. Everybody is now just like crossing it, and you're just like sitting there sad, unable to get back up. I'm sorry. I'm getting too worked up about this at this point. It's just like, I believed in this episode.
I didn't know what to expect with this episode. Like, when I saw the trailer and I was like, oh, okay, it's, about paparazzi and celebrities and whatever. It felt, like you said, dated. And that was before I knew that it was, of course, back in the day when this was really popular. But at the same time, I was just like, oh man, we've kind of seen this story play out. The werewolf thing was a good twist to it, but it wasn't there. It was the worst of the season.
It's not the worst of the season. It's the second worst of the season, because the idea was there.
Oh my goodness. Loch Henry
stand...
was not the worst of the season. It was just predictable. It was still a good episode, but oh my goodness.
I would rather watch a interesting catastrophe than something that felt like it never had a soul. And that is where I will be on this. And I will go down in flames on this take. I'm basically being on here being like, I don't know, the two people on the internet that are like, you know what? The Idol is actually good. No, The Idol stinks. But I know that there's like a couple of people out there who are just like dying on that hill. I will die on the Mazey, whatever this episode may be.
Day.
I can't even, I'm too upset to even know what this is anymore.
Yeah, you really are.
You guys just took a great idea and you threw it away. Okay, all right. I'm gonna stop, because I'm just gonna start yelling. But
all right.
That is our take on Mazey Day, the could have been great werewolf installment of Black Mirror.
Instead, they just set it on fire.
Why? Well, okay, all right. Well, hit that subscribe button. I'm going to go and cry now. Thank you all to all of our Patreons who support us.
Thank you.
And we'll see you here next time.